Hi, I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me Robert Schaffer of Schaffer Consulting. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks, Susan. It's nice to be here with you.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. So can you tell our viewers, just give them an overview of your background and your business and what your business is about and how you came to it?
Well, I started out as an engineer, a mechanical engineer in my youth, and I decided I wanted to do something more with people than with machinery. Mm-hmm. And so I switched over to industrial psychology and went into management consulting. And I've been in that for quite a long time. And our firm really focuses very much on helping organizations make change and become more productive, which all consultants focus on.
Yeah.
However, we do it in a somewhat unique way, which I think would be the interesting thing to talk about.
So what is unique about how you help organizations change?
Well, if you go into the internet and look up, for example, change management, mm-hmm. as I did this morning, there are 400 million entries for change management. 400
million?
Yes.
I haven't done that recently. Okay.
But if you get more specific and narrow down to managing organization change, there are 8 million entries. So a lot of people who are writing about and talking about how to help leaders of organizations make change. I say if you look at most of these, you wouldn't have time to read. Look through too many of these millions. But basically they all share a common assumption about how to make change, most of them, mm-hmm. which is if you want to change something in an organization, first you have to do a diagnosis, and then you have to find out what's wrong, and find out what needs to be corrected. Then you need to begin to build in the corrections, maybe train the people, introduce new systems, change the procedures. Eventually, if you keep all this going and all these preparations, something good will come out the other end. And this is basically the paradigm that almost all people involved in changing organizations or helping to change organizations have adopted, which is what we call the preparations first and then get results later. Uh-huh. We've evolved, and I'll say how we have. We've evolved the notion that the way to, if you want to make change, start by making some change and being successful and get some results and build on that. It's much more productive. It's much more fun.
So it sounds like you're saying that this preparation is people do a lot of planning before any actual real change occurs. So take me through an example of how you're different with getting results. It sounds like your focus is to get results sooner, get smaller results that you'll build on.
I'll give you a very neat example. In a bank in Mexico that we worked with, Banorte, mm-hmm. They were having trouble with reliability of their ATMs. You know, when you go to get some cash out of an ATM and it doesn't function, it's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah.
And customers get very angry. And they were trying for many, many months to improve the reliability of their ATMs. Mm-hmm. And the people who obtained the money were trying to get the government to give them crisp money so that it would work in the machines. They were trying to improve, the people doing the maintenance were trying to improve the way the reliability of the machines.
So when people, they just couldn't get the money out, it just wouldn't come out, or it'd get jammed up.
Well, there are all kinds of problems that occur, and each of the functions that had some responsibility was doing its part. The people who were trying to maintain the machines were trying to do a better job. The people who were delivering money were trying to improve the way they delivered the money and get crisper money. The people who were communicating with the branches were trying to improve that. The people who were educating the customers were doing that. Each group was doing its thing to make the improvement in the service and reducing the downtime and errors. That went on for many months, and nothing much happened. And they had about, I think, 2,500 machines throughout Mexico.
And there were problems at all the machines?
No,
Most of the machines?
there weren't. Actually, there was service was above 90%, but if above 90% is not good enough for an ATM. When,
Oh yeah, you
as a
want your
customer,
money.
when you need the money, you don't want to be told, well, sorry about that, but you know our service rate is over 90%.
Yeah.
If your machine fails. So they needed to get it up as close as they could to 100%, and it wasn't happening. And they were trying to, each of these functions was trying to improve the system across the whole country. And my colleague who was working there said, well, why don't we take a small group of these machines, perhaps in one neighborhood in Mexico City, and try to see what we can learn about improving them. People said, my God, we can't waste time. We have to do the whole, we gotta get the whole country up. And he said, well, you've been doing that, trying to do it that way for many, many months. Nothing's happening. Let's just give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but instead of having each function working on the improvement, he got a team together representing all the functions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And instead of working on the improvement of all the things that they were interested in improving, he got them to set a goal of reducing the outages in these, I think there were 44 machines in one little neighborhood, one barrio of Mexico City, reducing the outages by about 60%, I think, in 30 days. Mm-hmm. So it was a focus on result.
Yeah.
And it was all the functions together.
So it sounds like he narrowed down to focus in on one area,
Right.
and got more specific with articulating what the actual goal was that they wanted to
Well,
achieve.
he got them to set the goal.
Yeah.
But it was a result goal. It was not, sure, they had to improve all the things they were working on.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the project. The project was to get this result.
Yeah.
And when they got it, it was in 30 days, and it was fun. They enjoyed doing it.
So what did they discover what the problem was, and were they able to translate it to all the other ATMs?
Well, it isn't that they discovered what the problem was. They discovered what they had to do and how they had to work together and coordinate what they were doing to get better service.
Yeah.
And once they did it in...
Oh, the root cause. I mean, what was causing all the problems? I mean,
well, there isn't any root cause.
No root cause. It was just better coordination.
It's a bit of a fiction. People say, oh, well, first we have to understand, and what is the root cause? When we find the root cause, we'll dig down, and there will be the root cause, and we'll eliminate it. Yeah, all of these complicated operations, there are all kinds of root causes, but the key is, can the people work together to see what they have to do to get the better result? And they learned a number of things about how to work together, how to communicate with each other, instead of each function just working on its own.
so you're saying it was just better integration across all the
better
functions?
integration,
Yeah.
having the people think about not to think about how to get better bills and how to make the system better, but how to get a better result with the machine reliability.
And what was that? How did they get the better result?
They did a whole bunch of things. It was nothing that somebody came in and engineered. It was dozens of things that the people
Right. So it was like an integrated solution.
An integrated
Yeah.
solution. The people on the job who knew the job the best.
Yeah.
And once they did it in this one, even before the 30 days was up and they saw what was happening, they said, let's do all of Mexico City. So they did that next.
So they were able to translate it to a
Yes,
broader area.
And within several months, they covered all 2,500 machines across the whole country of Mexico and got these results.
So
And it sounds so simple, but it is so
Yeah.
different. there's practically nobody who starts making improvement by saying, let's experiment and get a result, see what we learn, and build on that. And that's the essence.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you how
Yeah.
how we got into this
Okay.
idea. When I was when I was a very young consultant, which was a few years ago.
Well, you've had this business a long time, which is must be a testament you're doing something right.
Yeah, I was working for another firm, and we were trying to help improve the productivity of a petroleum refinery in New Jersey. The Bayway Refinery, it was owned by Exxon in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And they had just had a staff reduction from, I don't know, 3,000 people down to about 2,700 people. And all the managers were saying, you know, we can't run this place with 2,700 people. And I was sort of working there, and I kind of believed them. They really felt strongly about that. Well, there happened to be a jurisdictional dispute between two groups of employees who each wanted a different union. And it sort of flared up one day. People walked off the job. Well, in a refinery, you can't leave it alone because there's highly volatile material. And so the supervisor stepped in, kept that unit running, thinking the people would be back. Well, gradually everybody walked off of the other units too. It was a spontaneous demonstration. And at the end of one or two shifts, the place had emptied out of all the working people, and it was being run by the supervisors and the engineers. And because there were two different unions vying, management had no way to negotiate to get this thing settled. And so the employees stayed out. They couldn't find a way to get back. And this thing went on for many months, four months, I think, before they actually settled it. But during those 4 months, 450 people ran the place that they said, we can't run it with 2,700 people.
Were they tired and stressed out, working around the clock?
You see, that's the first question people ask. Oh, well, they can't.
They're probably going crazy. Yeah, right. That's what I would have thought.
They were having, except for the fact that they didn't want. It was unpleasant because the employees were out, and it was not. You know, you don't want to see people out on the street. They're the people who went out to demonstrate. They did not want to go out on strike.
So they were able to run it fine?
They didn't
Without undue stress?
They didn't do some of the big turnaround maintenance projects, but they ran it, and they ran it well. And years later, they would look back at that time as kind of an adventure. And
well, did that tell them that then, you know, if they wanted to continue to do the upgrades, maybe they needed 800 employees versus 2,700? Maybe they still could reduce more?
They ended up with about half as many as the 27. But the impact on me, who had been trying to work with them to improve the place and not making very much progress, and I saw in this emergency situation, they stepped in, a small group of people, and made things happen that were, you know, you would have.
But don't you find that, though, when there's emergency situations, people will look upon what's going on differently and be willing to step up maybe in ways they wouldn't otherwise?
Absolutely.
Because it's like necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Absolutely. And that's the point.
Yeah.
When there is a must-do situation, people work differently, they think differently.
So what is it? People just got lazy, they didn't challenge their assumptions?
No, organizations are basically not all that efficient, most organizations. Because it wasn't just Bayway Refinery. Almost any organization, when it faces a situation like this, a sudden must-do situation, we have to get an order out. We have to ship something Monday.
Yeah.
We have to...
people scramble.
And people do it. And I've said, starting with that Bayway experience and trying to pay attention to what happens in similar situations. So there are a number of these that you're talking about that are very well known. I mean, just last year, or maybe 2 years ago, there was a mine collapse in Peru, and a number of miners were trapped below the surface.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, the experts said, if we're lucky, we can get them out in 4 months. So,
Gee, thanks a lot.
well, better than dying.
Right.
And they found a way to feed them. But they would have to do a lot of digging, and they had to do digging without injuring the people in there. Anyhow, they were out in 2 months. I give you example after example that where, as you said, where there is a must-do situation, organizations work differently. And
So I guess the question is, how do you support, infuse that way of working differently on a daily, becoming a way of life on a daily basis, so they can stay sharp and nimble?
I spent a lot of time after that Bayway experience thinking about that. And looking at other similar situations. And in those situations, there are a couple of things that are always present. One, there is a very specific thing that has to get done, a very clear goal. Everybody knows what that goal is.
Yep.
Well,
And there's an urgency.
there's a clear goal and there's a sense of urgency. It has to be done fast.
Yeah.
And the people have a freedom. In fact, they're encouraged to experiment with different ways to do it. Not just, follow the old routines and everything will get done. No, it won't get done because they know the old routines won't do it. So those kind of 3 things.
So the necessity to find a different way. And quickly.
The quickly and the very clear thing that has to be done.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at most organization change efforts as I described when we first started, with the preparations and the training and the studies, most of these millions of change methods that you can look up on the internet, they don't have that sense of urgency.
Yeah. So when you go in, if let's say a company calls you, they're having productivity issues. So are you hunting and looking for clarity on what's a goal that can create a sense of urgency where they can be encouraged to work differently, or how do you go in and?
Yeah. But guess what? We don't try to find it. We ask the people.
Right.
Avery Dennison is a company that makes labels and makes the self-sticking stamps. And they were very profitable, and they wanted to grow, but they weren't growing. So they asked our help in doing that. Could they accelerate growth? And in fact, this is a good example because the 2 fellows who ran the company met with me and they said, we want to change the climate. We want our people to be really turned on to growth and feeling good about growth. And I said, well, let's help them get some growth and they'll be turned on to growth. In other words, let's not take time to try to train them and change their attitudes and introduce new methods. Let's see if we can get some results quickly in ways that...
So what did you do?
I met, he said, fine, let's try it in a couple of places. They had 3 divisions near Cleveland, and so I went to each of those divisions, and I met with the senior people, and I said to them, do you have, I know you're doing a lot, every division is doing a lot of new product development. Said, do you have any, let's take some of your new products that you're working on and ask yourselves, are there anywhere you could just take a piece and get a result within the next couple of months? Go out and sell something rather than waiting another year or 2 years. And I didn't know whether they were going to throw me out or... And in each of the three groups...
So you said just focus on one little product and just give it a little push.
I asked them if they could do that. And somebody said, well, how about the so-and-so variety? Oh, yeah. They immediately, each of these divisions came up with a list of about half a dozen.
And did they get the results?
And we, in each case, we asked them to narrow down to just take a couple, 2 or 3. And they took 2 or 3. And we said, let's put a team together and decide what you could do to get a result. That doesn't mean bringing out the product that you're going to bring out 2 years from now.
Yeah.
But is there some part of that where that you could begin to experiment and get going? For example, they had an industrial tape that they were going to use. They made a tape that they sold commercially. They wanted to sell it through, like Home Depot for the ordinary consumer. And that was going to take months of planning and then designing the packaging and designing the advertising.
What did they end up doing?
They said, let's get this into a couple of retail stores in the next 100 days and have it. And then if it works, we'll just go.
Yeah.
And there were 13 projects like that in these 3 divisions. And every one of them produced some kind of a result which they would not have done if they had just kept the old methodology going.
Well, they put focus on it. And then how did they sustain and build on those results?
Well, that's a very important point, because with these rapid results, you can get some quick results.
So it's like you're building momentum.
And you can learn something.
Yeah.
But if you just do that and you don't build it into the ongoing organization process,
follow up.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So in each of these cases, each of those 3 divisions, at the end of the project, they figured out how to sustain what they did in the little experiment. And
so it's like you gave them a little shot and they were able to kind of upgrade and then build it into their systems and processes.
Well, they had to think about what they learned from it. In each case, they were learning. The learning is a very critical part.
Yeah.
It's to have some success, to have some fun, and to learn.
And to make sure you take the time to discuss what did we actually learn and how are we
absolutely, rather than say, oh, well, that was good.
No, because, a lot of companies, they just go on to the next thing.
Right.
That was nice.
Right. Now, we did one other thing in this organization, which we do in some places. We trained a number of people around the world to support the effort the way, rather than sending in big teams of consultants the way some of the large consulting firms do. We work as a very multiplicative way. We try to get the people in the organization doing some of these things. So
to own it.
Well, so that they could own it, but also we trained some internal consultants. They called them growth champions. And we coached them on how to do what we were doing. And they went around the company. At the end of, I think about 2 years, they had 500 of these teams working. We started with the 13, and within a year and a half, 2 years, they had 500 teams. They had produced about $150 million a year of incremental sales, and really had some impact.
Yeah.
And
well, that sounds like a good success story. I know one term that you use a lot is encouraging managers to make good demands.
Right.
Make good demands. Can you explain what you mean by that? We've got a couple more minutes, so I want to make sure that we cover that term.
Yeah, that's a very important topic. So one of the things we discovered, one of the reasons change doesn't take place, is that making demands and setting expectations is perhaps the weakest developed management capability that there is. Most managers are not all that skilled in asking for what they want. They
So are good demands setting challenging yet realistic goals, challenging people's assumptions? What would be like an example of a good demand?
Well, first, to make sure that they're asking for and getting agreement with their person on exactly what's to be accomplished.
So getting agreement is probably a key thing, because managers maybe ask, but they don't really have the dialogue to get the agreement
well,
sometimes.
more than getting the agreement, then saying, well, first is to say how are we going, how are you going to do it, as well as let's agree on exactly what you're going to do. Then give me a work plan, because a manager can say, well, you know, you have to get this project out in 40 days.
Yeah.
And the fellow says, okay, fine.
So
we'll
really
do it.
getting into the how-tos. I mean, it sounds basic, but I guess it doesn't always some of the basic things
It's,
just don't always happen.
Yeah, if you accused me of being very, these are all such simple ideas.
Yeah.
Then the answer is yes, they are very simple. Most managers don't, if you look at them, they don't make clear-cut demands. They let people get away with saying, okay, boss, I'll give it a try, or maybe we'll work on it.
So there isn't clear communication as to
And
what
they
they're
don't
talking
ask for a clear-cut
Yeah.
work plan. They don't have measurements of progress.
Yeah. So we have one, this time's gone by quickly, we have one more minute. So if somebody wanted, I know you do write a lot of articles,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted some information on your processes and your recommendations, something, you know, free that they could just download or take away, how would they get a copy of one of your articles?
Well, if they go onto our website, which is SchafferResults.com, and Schaffer is spelled SCHAFFER, Schaffer Results, all one word, .com. We have hundreds of articles, many books, and one of my colleagues has produced quite a few blogs for the Harvard Business Review and for Forbes that are available. So there are all kinds of articles you can write for, and blogs that you can just
Download to
and-
get some of your perspective and thought
Yeah.
leadership. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been very informative.
Well, enjoyed it.
Okay. I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.